Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Welcome to the last webinar of our English Open Pit webinar series. I'm Tabang Maepa, a mining engineer from Datamine Africa, who's mostly focused on the open pit side. And I'm with the webinar co-organizer, Tembani Chirinda, a mining engineer also from Datamine Africa, but he's mostly focused on the underground space, right? So with that said, I'll be the one who's taking you through this webinar today. The webinar should be around 40 minutes long, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So I'll appreciate it if you can hold off all questions until the end of this webinar. So the most important question today is, what are we trying to achieve here? So the aim of this webinar is to show you how you can create a detailed short-term schedule within a reasonable period of time. So in order to achieve our main goal, I will show you how during the block creation process, you can define additional attributes or even update existing mining attributes if you have them. We will go ahead and define our haulage network so that the software will be able to determine our hauling requirements for our schedule. We will model important scheduling activities that you may have in your operation, like drilling, then blend materials from the stockpiles, either manually or automatically. Then I will show you how you can create an Excel report using a preformatted Excel template, the coolest thing ever, guys. We will go ahead and generate our end of period surfaces for our scheduling periods. And lastly, I would like to discuss the integration between Studio OP and EPS. So EPS is one of our products for scheduling. It's called Enhanced Production Scheduler. So I'll connect Studio OP to EPS and show you how the link works, right? So before I get to the nitty-gritty of things, I would like just to discuss this workflow for reserve generation in Studio OP. So this is a summary of how you'd prepare your mining blocks for scheduling. So you start on your setup ribbon where you define your pit, the topography file, the block model file that is associated with your pit, and your pit bench definitions, right? Then you go to the reserves ribbon where you'll start defining what is your pit design, either by strings or by a wireframe. Take your pit design and the topo, create the pushback solids, right? From there on, you take your pushback solids, you cut them according to your bench definitions in order to create your bench solids and your bench outlines. Go a step further to cut your bench solids into practical mining blocks, and then you can add your dependencies to your mining blocks and some mining sequence if you want, and you're ready to schedule. So we have this important feature now whereby you can load pre-existing mining blocks. So if you have the mining blocks, you can just go straight to the step where you import the mining blocks and you bypass everything that we discussed right here. Right, so at this stage, I'll just switch on to Studio OP just for perspective. So this is our setup ribbon. This is where you define your pit, your topography file, your block model, decide if you want to create the mining blocks yourself or import mining blocks that are existing, and define your benches. This is the design ribbon in case you want to create a design or update an existing design, right? So I will not discuss this. It's not part of the scope of this webinar as it was discussed in the first webinar that we had. So I'll skip straight to the reserves ribbon. The first thing is you add your design here. You create your phase solid. You cut your phase solids into bench solids. And for this webinar, my point of departure will be right here where you have to generate your mining blocks. So there are two ways of creating mining blocks. You can either create the blocks using the auto cutter or you can create the blocks manually. So I will not discuss the auto cutter in this webinar since it was discussed in the last webinar that we had. So I'll go ahead and create the mining blocks manually, which is fitting for a short-term schedule, right? So you'll see here, I have the bench outlines. So these are different bench outlines for different benches, right? So the procedure for creating mining blocks, it's very simple on Studio OP. I will show you right now. So we have this option to copy the bench outline and offset it inside by a certain distance that you apply here. So we use it to create the trim blocks. So say I want to create trim blocks that are 25 meters wide. I can copy this and you'll see the string has been offsetted inside. So at this stage, all of your string functions are available to you. So I'll just create a new string here and then expand the string this side by 150. So these will then represent my kata strings. So maybe I can add another string right here, right? So the moment I click on generate, the software will find where the strings are forming a closed perimeter and then generate a mining block for me. So the block will then have a unique block identifier, right? So where the software finds a closed perimeter, it will just generate a mining block for me. So you'll see these small blocks will then be my 25-meter trim blocks, and these will be my inner production blocks, right? So now I want to show you another cool feature that we have. Let me clear this, which is to import pre-existing kata strings. So if you have pre-existing kata strings, you can come here on import, go look for the strings, and then when you click on OK, you'll see that I've imported the kata strings here, right? And then at this point, all you have to do is just click on generate. But before I do, let me show you that it's possible to also, like when you're creating your mining blocks, you can load your block model in the background, and that will guide you where to cut your blocks properly, right? So I can know where exactly. Let me change the legend to little, right? So I can know exactly where is my ore and where is my waste. In this case, this block will be a waste block, and this one I'll consider it as an ore block, right? So that's a very cool feature that we have. So you'll see now when I go to different blocks, now I have the blocks that are created, different block IDs, right? So you're also getting a new cool feature on our new version that will release, whereby I'll be able to select a specific boundary and only generate a grid inside that specific boundary, right? So that will be on the next version that we'll be releasing. So at this stage, I've demonstrated how you can easily generate mining blocks on Studio OP, right? I'm gonna save this and then go to the next step, which is the attributes. So one of the things that I said I want to achieve through this webinar is to show you how you can add new attributes to your mining blocks or update existing attributes. So you'll see here I'm defining new attributes that I want to add to my mining blocks. So I have the block name, because maybe I'm not happy with the way Studio OP names the blocks. I have the block type, I have the elevation here, right? So the process is very simple. You click on new, create a new attribute, leave it at attribute 1. You decide if this attribute is numeric or alphanumeric. Then I can save. So on the values, these are the attributes that are expression based. So we will then decide for the attributes that I defined here, what's the expression for calculating that attribute. For example, for block name, you'll see that I'm joining North Pit with the elevation of the block and the unique block identifier separated by underscores, right? So as soon as I click on any attribute and I click run, if you're familiar with our Studio Core products, you'll know that in the background, the software is running an extra command for this expression. Then I have attributes that are constants, right? So this is just straightforward. You define the attribute and it becomes a constant, like 5. We also have this cool tool where I'm able to define attributes interactively. So I'll show you how this works. So for example, the block type attribute. So this is the attribute that will tell me if a block is a trim block, production block, or a ramp block. So in order to define that, I'll just put production block on the value, select all the blocks, and just apply production to all the blocks. You'll see now all blocks are production blocks. But I know this is not true. this block. So the ones that I'm selecting, I know these are my trim blocks, right? So I'll just come to value, change production to trim, then apply. So you'll see it has updated the trim blocks now. And then maybe these two blocks right here, just make them my ramp blocks. I know there's a ramp that is coming in here, and this guy maybe will still need some proper preparation for the ramp. So this is how I'll define the block type interactively. Go to the next bench, repeat the same process, but now on the next bench, I'll use a different attribute called strata. So on the strata, I know I'm based on the block model because I used it in the background. I know my soil blocks, I know my ore blocks. So now I'll select all blocks, just apply soil, but I know where my ore blocks are. So I know where I put in a bit of details into my blocks. Those will represent my ore blocks, right? Like these blocks right here, including these ones and this guy, right? So these are my ore blocks. I'll apply and you'll see that the blocks have been updated, right? Then I can save and this information will be saved on my block file. So this is how you'll define attributes interactively, right? So the next thing that I will do is to evaluate my blocks. So on this process, what am I doing actually? I'm actually using the information that is on my block models and bringing that information into my mining blocks, right? So the tonnage, the grades, all of that information that is in the block model, I'm bringing it into the mining blocks. I can now define attributes that are dependent on the information that is on the mining blocks, right? So you'll see here I'm defining pre-split, meters, production meters. So these are all accumulative attributes. So on the values, I have different formulas to calculate all these attributes. And I can use a filter, right? So for example, on grade control, the filter is if the strata is ore, then this is the formula for calculating my grade control meters, which is the number of holes I'll have in that block multiplied by the height of that block plus 1 meter for subdrill, for example. But if I have my strata is soil, I don't have any grade control. I'm not going to do any grade control on that block, right? And then at this point, again, once you've defined everything, you just have to click run all, and then the software will run an extra in the background. I'm happy with this. The next thing that I need to do now is to create my special dependencies. So these are my bench by bench dependencies that will prevent me from undermining. When I'm happy, the next thing is to create a data set. So it's simple, new, you give it a name. So you can have multiple data sets, which will allow you to run different scenarios. Maybe in one data set, you're testing block sizes, different block sizes. In one data set, you're testing different block orientations. So a data set is a simple folder. It's like a folder that stores information about your mining blocks, your dependencies, your block outlines, and your reserve file. So if I open my reserve file, you will see the attributes that I defined on the block are right here. So here's my block name with north pit joined with the elevation and the unique block identifier. The block type, here it is, tells me what type of block it is. And here's my elevation, right? So at this stage, now I'm ready to start scheduling. Go to my schedule ribbon. The first thing that I need to do is to load my data set. So here I will have multiple data sets that I defined and I choose the one that I want to use, right? And then I'm gonna create a new schedule file, call it bang. And then here I decide how I want to treat certain fields, right? So all those accumulated fields, I just want to accumulate them. My meters, keep them accumulated, right? Okay, so now you'll see here's my pit, my blocks, I mean. right? So let me just format right here. And then I'll just go ahead and load my pit just for perspective, for better perspective, right? I like doing this because then it gives me better perspective. So this is my topo. Drop an image over the topo, right? So then this will be the image that I have, right? And then now I'll just gonna apply this other legend that we created, right? So this is an active legend that we have based on the activities. I'll show you how this legend works. It's a cool legend that you can generate, right? So this is how the legend looks like. Sorry. So you see the orange already tells you these blocks require grade control. So remember, these are my ore blocks. These are my soil blocks. They don't need any grade control or production drilling. They just need to be loaded, right? Me change the strings here. Okay, so now I'm ready to do my schedule, right? But the first thing that I need to do is I need to work on the setup. So on the setup, it's pretty simple. You need to start defining your calendars. So these are my scheduling calendars. You'll see it's in weeks, so 7 days a period. And then I have my main calendar, which summarizes my non-work days for my mine and my non-standard days also for my mine. Then I have different maintenance calendars for my machines, which I can apply a specific calendar to a specific machine. I've defined 4 destinations. It's a plant, the waste dump, and 2 stockpiles, right? And then I've also defined different machines that I have. So if I go into the ore excavator settings, this is the rate in tons per hour. I've applied a specific maintenance calendar to this excavator, and I've also modeled different availabilities and utilizations by period. I've done the same for all the loaders that I've defined and all the drill equipment that I've defined as well. Right. Under the haul trucks, I have 2 types of trucks that I defined. One specially dedicated for waste hauling and the other one for ore hauling, right? And then the haul routes. This is where I define my haulage network. So in order for you to define a haulage network on Studio OP, you need separate points files, which will summarize what are your bench exits, what are your pit exits, any points where your roads are intersecting, points that represents the average position of your destinations, and a string file that joins all these points together. And then when I click OK, you will see here now it will upload my haulage network. So this is my plant, my stockpile. So the ore will exit this side on the speed exit here, and the waste will exit on the speed exit because the dump is this side, right? And then now I have targets that I defined, which I can easily summarize right here, right? So I have my total waste target, my plant copper, and my plant tons. And then the next thing now that is important is defining activities that are important to your operation. So I have predefined activities here, which is my pre-split drilling, production drilling, grade control, and loading. So the process is still simple here. If I need a new activity, I'll come on new, give it a name here, decide what's the type of activity this is. Is it a process activity or a delay activity? So a process activity means there's going to be a machine that is allocated to this activity, and therefore there's going to be a rate of measurement. If it's a delay, there's no machine allocated. It's just a delay in terms of time. Like if I have to do block preparation on a block in the ground, right? Once I've defined the activities, the next thing is to order them in terms of sequence. Which activity will happen first, right? So I can move an activity up and down the list. And I also need to decide if activities can happen in parallel or not in one block. So here what I'm saying is in one block, I need to do my grade control and finish it because grade control can't happen in parallel without another activity, I mean. But my pre-split and production drilling can take place at the same time in one block. And then my loading needs to happen alone in a certain block. So this is the order, right? So now I've defined my settings and I'm ready now to start scheduling, right? So the process of scheduling is also simple on Studio OP, right? So when I want to schedule, come here, select the block that I want to schedule. So I'll select this block. So when I click on schedule, you'll see it tells me the first activity that needs to take place here is my grade control. Say I do only 50% grade control here, right? My legend will automatically update the block color and go to this color that says grade control is in progress. So this means that I've done more than 0% of the grade control, but I've not done 100% of it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my grade control in this block. Then the next thing, it will tell me that there's production drilling that is required here because the block is now red. So select the block, do my production drilling, able to choose the drill that I want to apply here. So I'm going to go ahead and do all my production drilling. Now I'm going to do the loading, right? So you see I have ore tons and a bit of waste tons here. Tells me the destinations according to what I defined here. But now I need to allocate a loader. So I'll say the ore excavator because I want to have better selectivity here. And then now this is a summary of the material routes. So the destination is the plant and the waste. This is the truck that it's going to be loaded and the bench exits, right, etc., etc. At this point, I can preview my haulage log, right? So this is my haulage log that I want to preview. So on the haulage log, it will just give me a summary of the haulage for this block. So the block is loaded, it's gonna exit here, right? And then this is the distance from bench exit 1 to bench exit 2, etc., etc. The gradient, the speed on that sector, right? So I'm just gonna repeat this process. So if I click on OK here, I get this warning that my capacity of my loader has been exceeded. That means I don't have enough hours to load this block entirely. But I'm not stressing. I'll just click yes, override that warning, right? Then use this edit tool right here to fix that. So on this edit tool, I'll just go to my ore excavator and you'll see that the dates here are colored in red. They show you that I'm over the capacity. So what I can do is just spill over what I can mine in period 1 into period 2. So you'll see now I'm in period 2 and I've spilled over 63% of the tonnages into period 2. So if I go to period 1, you'll see that I'm only able to mine 37% and I have a lead duration of 95 hours due to the activities that take place before my loading, right? So if I close here, you see that I've 33,000 tons that goes straight to the plant from the pit. I'm short of around 26,000 tons and my grade is slightly above my target by 0.03%. So at this point, I can go to my stockpiles to reclaim some materials, manually that is. So to do manual reclamation, just come here to the stockpile, click, and then it's gonna tell me what are the available tons on the stockpiles, what's the maximum reclaim, what's the destination from the reclamation of the stockpiles, and the loader. It also has some material routes summary. So because I need 26,000, I'm gonna just reclaim 23,000 here and do 3,000 here. So how much I'm reclaiming from my low grade stockpile and how much I'm reclaiming from my high grade stockpile is dependent on the states of my stockpiles and how much I'm already sending to the stockpile. So if I click here, you'll see that now I'm on target. The color changed from red to black, right? And the status will tell me my targets are met. Cool. If I go to the next period, which is period 2, already I'm on target here. My tons are on target, right? But let's say something happens, something that you didn't plan for, right? Maybe there's rain that happens, or there's a breakdown of your machine that is not part of your maintenance calendar. So instead of being able to mine 58,000 tons, you can only do 32,000 tons. So I can also come here and update the tons that I can only manage to mine in this period, which is 32,000 tons of ore, right? Then this will automatically update. You see here the tons dropped from 58 to 32 in this period. So I'm also not on target. I need 28,000 tons more. But now I'm going to reclaim from the stockpiles automatically. So in order to be able to do that, come here, stockpiles, blend from stockpiles. Choose the period that I want to blend for and the stockpiles that I want to consider during my blending. So if I click blend, you'll see now again that the colors turned black to show that I'm on target. Optimal solution was found at period 2, right? And my targets were met. Cool, I'm happy. And because I didn't mine everything, you'll see that the color here is green, which says my loading is in progress. And this is a summary of the tons that are remaining on this block at the end of period 2, right? And then now another thing that I would like to show you is if I mine these blocks. So these blocks are my soil blocks. There's no grade control. I just need to do my loading. You'll see here, it goes straight to loading. So I mine all these blocks now using my waste shovel, right? Mined everything, you'll see the actual tons will increase for my waste, right? So if I call upon that loader with shovel 2, these are all the blocks that I'm mining using this waste shovel. But now let's say, okay, before I talk about that, if I click here, select this block, you'll see the block will be highlighted here, the string, the outline. If I click this one, the outline will be highlighted, right? So this is the first block that I'm gonna start mining. But let's say for whatever reason, I can't start with this block anymore. So I can move this block up and down the sequence. So I can make it the last block now that I'm gonna mine. So I've moved it from the first block to the last block, right? If it happens I can't mine this block in this period, I can also move this block to the next period, for example. You see now I'm on period 3, right? This block has been moved from period 2 to period 3. If for whatever reason as well, I can come here, change my loader. If I can't use this loader anymore, this loader is no longer available, I can change from shovel 2 to shovel 1, right? See that the block is still in period 3, but the loader has been changed from shovel 2 to shovel 1. I can also, if I don't want to mine this block anymore at all, I can delete this activity and you'll see the block will reappear here to show that I have undone the mining of that block. Right, so that is the summary that I wanted to discuss with you regarding how we can do the schedule, right? So at this point, I'm just gonna switch over to a different project, right? So this is a project where I've done the schedule completely up until the end of the blocks that I have right here. So here I want to discuss how you'll generate an Excel report from a pre-existing template. So at this point, this is where I generate the report. This point, if I just click here, it's going to create an Excel file for me, right? So this is the Excel file, just the summary of my schedule. It's a database of my schedule, the period, the machine that I'm using, the activity that is taking place, when is it starting, the percentage that is being done, right, etc., etc. Then I can just do my normal pivot tables right here if I want to, right? You can do any period table that you want. But now let's say there's a way you guys report at the mine. So you already have a reporting system. You have a template. So I'm just going to show you an example of a template that I have. So this is the template that I have. You'll see this is the database, right? This is the plant feed, how I'm feeding the plant. This is the summary of the material that flows out of the pit, both what goes to the plant, both in terms of ore and waste, I mean. What goes to the plant, what goes to the stockpiles, and what goes to the dump. This is my loading schedule, my drilling schedule, my hauling schedule, etc. Right. So now what I can do is can come to this setting and define what my template, right? So I'll come here and say webinar template 1 is the template that I want to use for reporting, and I want to create a report called report 1 or 2, whatever. And then this sheet name is the name that corresponds to the sheet where I'm going to be pasting my database, right? So then I'm going to click OK. The moment I click right here, right, it's going to open a Excel of my report. So this is the Excel of my report, right? This is the database. All I have to do here, come to data and refresh all my pivot tables. So now this is my plant feed. This is the total material that comes out of the pit, my loading schedule, drilling schedule, hauling schedule, and the fleet requirement, right? Number of rigs, loaders, and trucks. So if I just put this side by side, make this guy a bit smaller. So if I go to the plant feed, excuse me, so you'll see this is my plant feed on the template, because this was a previous schedule that I did, and this is the plant feed now on the report, right? So that's how you'll generate a report using a pre-existing template, right? And then now what I'd like to do is just to play the animation for you for this schedule. So you see I'm opening up from the ramp all the way to the end. So these are my trim blocks, and I'm trying to delay the mining of the trim blocks as much as I can, right? So that's the animation of the schedule. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how you can generate the end of period surfaces. It's a pretty straightforward activity. You come here in surfaces, you browse for the topography file that corresponds to your pit. You decide for which period you want to generate the surface from. So you can generate even from period 1 to the end of your schedule into one file, which you can then extract later by period. So for this example, let's say I just want to generate for my month 1, which is 4 weeks, right? Rename this month 1, click on generate. And then you'll see here what happens is I have a file called month 1, and then this is the end of period surface for month 1. You'll see that I'm just taking this area right here, opening up right here, and I'm also mining a bit of ore that is right here. So this is where I'm anticipating to be at the end of month 1. So I can use this to do my compliance to plan. So we have a studio survey product where I can use this surface to generate my compliance to plan after month 1, right? So that's what I wanted to discuss with you. Now, the next thing that I want to show you guys is how you can, let me go back to this project and do all my mining, how you can synchronize Studio OP with EPS. So we have this function where I can connect my schedule on Studio OP with EPS. So the minimum that I need to start synchronizing is obviously my mining blocks that are prepared via Studio OP, and just to define a mine calendar, no, a scheduling calendar actually. So once that is done, click here on synchronize. It's gonna open this tab here where I choose which fields do I want to export to EPS, right? If I have a road network that I defined on OP and I want to export it to EPS, I can use this tab right here. So when I click on OK, it's it's gonna open up this EPS right here. So you see all my blocks right here, right? And then the ID will tell me which activity is happening here, production, drilling, load, grade control, etc. And my blocks are essentially in period 1, 2, 3 because I've not done any sequencing here. So the lines that you see here are links, which are my special dependencies that I created on Studio OP. So now I have a project here, which I've done. I've completed this project, right? Let me just close this one. So you'll see here, I have all the links that I've generated now. So this is my Gantt chart view with all the links between the blocks. And I've colored the blocks by different activities that I have. So my blue is load and hauling, my orange is grade control, maroon is production drilling, and green is pre-splitting. So you'll see here, for example, this block, do my grade control, then my pre-splitting, then my production drilling, which is then linked to my loading block. So these are different machines that I've allocated to different blocks. So for this block, for example, this guy right here, I'm going to use the waste shovel and the cat truck, right? So what I wanted to show you here is I can generate multiple reports, right? Like my drilling report, which I can just click here and get a summary of what's my grade control meters, pre-split meters, and drilling meters per period. Can go here and load my resource report, which tells me then what are my resources per period. For example, you can see in period 1, I only need 3 cat trucks and 1 Volvo truck. And then these are all the resources, my loaders and my drill rigs. If I want to see what goes to the plant, I call upon my plant feed report, right? And then I have different pivot tables that I defined, which I can call upon right here. So this is my plant feed pivot table, drill meter pivot table, and total tonnage pivot table. I have multiple dashboards as well, right? So these are dashboards that when I was creating, I was replicating what I have on my template, right? So trying to generate the dashboards that I've created right here. Material flow, this guy, try and replicate him on this side, which is this guy. So I have multiple dashboards which I can easily call upon to right here as well, right? My drill meter dashboard, stockpile movement dashboard, etc. So I also have my stockpiles right here, my 2 stockpiles, which is the stockpile 1 and stockpile 2, and the loader is assigned to these stockpiles. If I double click on the stockpile, go to planned extraction. So these are the tonnages that I'm extracting per period from this stockpile to the plant, right? From my low grade stockpile. The same is true. I would have the same thing on my high grade stockpile, the extraction quantity by period, right? So I've also done manual extraction from the stockpiles on EPS, right? So lastly, what I wanted to show you is that it's possible to link EPS with Studio OP, right? So how you do that is you come here to your mining blocks, right click and go link to EPS by block ID. Okay, so on Studio OP we have this special ribbon for EPS synchronization. So if I refresh here, just open this, go to my EPS sequence. If I come back here, select a block right here, you'll see that on EPS, the block will be highlighted in black to show that this is a live linking. So if I select all the blocks this side, if I come this side, all the blocks will be selected as well, right? So the process is if I want to link blocks, I can just select, maybe I want to link this block, and this block. Select all 3 of them in the order I want to link them and go link. Or I can create the link on EPS where I'll just come here and create the link. So that's how you'll create the sequence on EPS. So if I go back to this project, right, now I've linked to EPS and now I've scheduled completely on EPS, created my links here. Now I wanna show you the animation. So come here to this EPS sequence and start playing the animation. So you'll see I'm getting the exact animation that I had on Studio OP, right? This is just to show you that it's possible to create a similar schedule using Studio OP or EPS, right? So the schedules are the same. Let me try and do this. Snap this to the left and then snap this guy to the right. Now put this guy and then play the animation this side and also play the same animation this side. So I'm getting the same animation on both the different software that I used, right? So that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes what I wanted to show you, right? So the last thing that I would like to discuss with you is just to let you know that on Studio OP, we also have an auto scheduler tool, which is an optimization tool that will do the schedule for you automatically, respecting your sequence, obviously, and your constraints. So it tries to optimize your cash flow while considering those things. The same is also possible to do on EPS where you use the EPS solver, right? So the solver is also a blending and optimization tool. It can do the blending for you automatically, and it can optimize your schedule while respecting your machine constraints or any other constraints that you may have, as well as your sequences, right? That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this webinar. I will take any questions from this point. Thank you. If you wanna get in touch with us, so these are our contact details.